Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, investment analyst, economist, and venture capitalist, Morty Davis is Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical political, economic, and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the recent red state, blue state debate by Sean Hannity is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
I'm delighted to be back with you. It's 6:30 Wednesday evening. The Voice of Wisdom in my personage is on every Wednesday at 6:30. Tell your friends about it. I love joining with you. The real Voice of Wisdom, Voices of Wisdom. You really, over the months and weeks and days that you respond to my program, either by phone or by emails or messages, are really the thing that make me much wiser. So I appreciate your input, and keep on sending your wisdom, because you're never too old to learn, and I'm finding that I can benefit a lot from your insights. Before I launch today's discussion about the debates between, overwhelmingly, it's about debate between DeSantis and Newsom that Sean Hannity hosted last week. I want to give you the most important part of the program, and it's an uplift related to my book, Happiness Guaranteed or Your Misery Back, which is 365 days of ideas. Each day starts with a joke and to give you a lift, and tells you how to be happy that day and every single day of the year. So what I want to remind you of this week is that the United States, the richest country in the world, has more psychosomatic illnesses than any other country in the world. So the wealth doesn't help us to feel better. We have more ulcers, more migraines, more ulcerative colitis and Crohn's, so many of the more arthritis, all of which are inspired by tension, anxiety, aggravation. So I figured out a while back, it took a long time, a lot of years, to avoid that kind of anxiety and tension and focusing on achieving the goals that I want to achieve, or fulfilling dreams that I have. And by doing that, you're stressed. At least I tended to be stressed in that process. So one time I said, look, I can't influence. I only want to work on things I can influence. So I said, I'm going to pray to God. And if you don't pray to God, at least, engage in hope, positive, optimistic hope, that it's going to happen, and that since there's very little you can do, or often nothing you can do about it, it takes the worry off your mind, and it either happens and you would thank God, or it doesn't happen, and it's not your fault because God didn't fulfill, or your hopes weren't fulfilled if you didn't engage God. Not everybody in this country is religious or throughout the world believes in a God. So if you believe in a God, it helps a lot. You turn over the problem, the hope, the expectation, the dream to God. And if it doesn't help, it doesn't get fulfilled, then it wasn't meant to be. There's a famous story of a fellow that says to God, God, let me win the lottery. I'll give half the winnings to charity. And he doesn't win. The next week, he says, God, let me win the lottery. I'll give 2/3 to charity. And again, he doesn't win. The next week, he hollers out to God, God, let me win the lottery. I'll give 90% to charity. And God, you hear a voice from heaven, says, Morty, do me a favor, buy a ticket. So you have to give God a little help. You can't say, if it's meant to be, it'll happen. You got to do whatever you can to make it happen. But just worrying about it is what brings on all the negatives in our lives, the headaches, the migraines, the ulcers. So see if you can adopt that attitude. Stay positive, believe it's going to happen. If God wants it to happen, if it's meant to be, and if it's not meant to be, accept that and move on. Either find a way to achieve it through work, effort, or if it's not doable that way, then process, plan what you want to happen. There's more than one way to be happy in life. You don't have to, if the only thing you want to do is be a billionaire, it's unlikely that you're going to be successful, because very few of us become billionaires. But there's lots of things we can wish for that are less difficult to come by and much more rewarding. There's a famous song. I don't sing well, so I'm not going to expose you to my singing. But it goes something like this. The name of the song is the best things in life are free. The sun in the morning, the moon at night, the sand on the beach, the waves that come roaring in. All the things that you don't have to pay for are the things that can make you happy. So, enjoy nature, enjoy your kids, enjoy your nachas, your rewards, and count your blessings every single day, and several times a day, if you will. That's the way to be happy. Anyway, I'm delighted to have back Len Carter, a brilliant associate of mine. He's a graduate of the same college, university that I'm a graduate of, Harvard Business School. I'm reluctant to admit it now because Harvard and Penn State and MIT and their presidents were on the air yesterday before Congress, and the Republican congresswoman from New York State, I don't remember what district, but her name was, what was her name again? Stefanik. She was brilliant and strong, and I couldn't believe she was so forceful, because she asked these three women, incidentally, all three were presidents of these three major universities, three of the best universities in the United States. Two of them were Ivy League universities, Harvard and Penn. And MIT stands out by itself because it's the greatest university about science, about research, about mathematics. So I was impressed that these women achieved the status. That one who was president of Harvard was an African American named Gay. I don't know if she is gay or not gay, but she's definitely vibrant and clearly intelligent African American, because you don't get to be president of Harvard without having major positive educational and intellectual qualities. And the same goes for the other two, who are both women, in both each case white. And she asked them each if they could reject or make an issue.
Denounce.
Renounce.
Denounce, yeah.
Renounce?
Denounce.
Renounce is the same. You know, a Catholic priest has given last rites to one of his parishioners, and since he's close to dying, he says to his parishioner, "Now that you're close to passing on, are you ready to renounce Satan?" And this parishioner says to him, "Father, I don't think this is a good time for me to start making new enemies." So she said, "Do you think it's proper to renounce, or it's incumbent on you all to renounce or denounce," how did she phrase it? Genocide of Jews, of Jewish people, is appropriate, or as many of your on-campus students are saying, kill the Jews. Don't you feel that you should loudly and vociferously say that's improper? You won't tolerate it. This university won't tolerate it, even to the point where if you're found to do it more than once after you realize it's wrong, that the student might get suspended or even what's the word? Kicked out of?
Expelled.
Expelled, yeah. Expelled. And each one of them, I was sad to hear, said, "Well, it depends on the context." She said, "What do you mean depend on the context? They have to say, I'm going to kill you right now, or I'm going to kill Jews right now, or if you're Jewish, I'm going to kill you." It's a simple question. Should you denounce that kind of behavior on the part of your faculty in some cases, and some professors, and all of your students? And each time they came back and said, each one of them said the same thing. "Well, it depends on the context." She said, "This is a yes or no answer. It's not context. Should it be unacceptable? Should it be something that you oppose?" And she couldn't get them to change their minds. So I don't know what provoked them. It's almost like they were each endorsing it's okay to advocate the genocide of Jewish people. I was very taken aback and disappointed, and then literally surprised. And today, a number of congressmen have been calling for these three women to be resign their positions, or even to be kicked out, rejected.
Well, look how long it's taken for some number of women's groups related to the UN to denounce rape
Right.
by
Yeah. As long as you're raping Jewish women
it's okay.
and
Right.
beating them up and
I mean, it's
attacking them and
it's 2 months, and finally, just the other day, they,
very few of
came
them
out with
still,
a position
very
that
few of
says,
them.
but
There's no major. It's very hard to believe that after what we Jews experienced in Nazi Germany, that we still have to tolerate this behavior toward Jews. It's interesting that Jesus himself, if he were alive today, would be put in the same category because he was Jewish, and to think that somebody that is so highly thought of by over 1 billion people would be appropriate to say that about Jesus, that he should be that genocide of him would be appropriate.
or depend on the context, right? Depends on the context.
In fact, he was killed. I don't know if he was killed because he's Jewish, but I'm sure it might have been part of it. Anyway, I don't want to depress you because
We didn't even get to the depressing stuff yet.
Because it's the eve of Hanukkah, one of the happiest celebrations, holidays of the Jewish religion, where the Maccabees came the I forget if it was the Romans or the Greeks or whoever. They were overwhelmed in numbers, and they still not survived, but overcame their larger number of enemies. And also the miracle of in the temple in the Jewish most holy place in Jewish religion, the temple in Jerusalem, which had to light candles for 8 days celebrating the Hanukkah holiday, had only enough oil for one night. And miraculously, the oil lasted 8 nights. So we celebrate that, and we light candles and put it in our windows to demonstrate our feeling about that holiday and that miracle. So it's a happy holiday, so be happy and don't get depressed by what we're discussing today or any time. God bless you. I love you. And remember, only work on things that you can have an effect on, you can change. Otherwise, it's like kicking up against a solid wall and try to move forward. Don't fight with reality. Anyway, let me get on to the discussion points that my producer prepared. And why don't you start?
So we had this debate, if you want to call it that. I mean, that's a question. Was it a debate? It was staged by Fox News and Sean Hannity as the great red state, blue state debate, with Ron DeSantis representing the great state of Florida, red state, and Gavin Newsom representing one of the bluest, if not the bluest, of blue states, California. So I guess the first question, kind of from a big picture point of view, is what was the purpose of that? You know, all the other debates had all the candidates except for the one in the lead, Trump, but at least they had the other candidates all who were running. And in this case, it was just one
from each party, from each state.
But not even one from each running, although that's a question in itself.
Well,
is Gavin Newsom really running a shadow campaign?
No, that was the point of the debate. It was that these two are the most likely, or considered the most likely, if Trump drops out, DeSantis is considered most likely, although less so today than he was 6 months ago. But still, he or maybe Haley, what's her first name?
Nikki
Haley, are considered the front runners should Trump drop out. And if in the event Biden dropped out, Newsom seems to be the governor of California seems to be the most likely choice as successor for Biden. Other people say it's Michelle Obama. Some people say it's Kamala Harris, although that seems like a long shot.
Even though that's what Newsom said. It would be Kamala Harris.
Yeah, he wishes.
Or Kamala Harris, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, Democrats have to back Kamala Harris or some other major black woman, African-American woman. Otherwise, they'd lose what is often their, in the case of Obama, he got about 98% of the black vote.
So it was a debate between the two candidates who would be candidates if the real candidates weren't candidates.
Right.
So if Biden weren't running and Trump weren't running, then it would be a debate between the two candidates.
Biden said something. He withdraws it now.
Well, he said if Trump weren't running, I'm not sure if I would be running.
I wouldn't be running. Yeah.
We're not sure. So
now he said, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Initially, he said, if Biden weren't, I got to make sure that Trump is never given that role. It's too dangerous. He's a threat to democracy. He even indicates that he'd be a dictator. There wouldn't be a...
Just for a day, though.
That's what he said. Sean Hannity asked him Sean interviewed him for an hour yesterday. Unfortunately, I fell asleep, so I never heard the end.
So,
but it was supposed to be on policy, but Sean asked him rightfully that a lot of people on the Democratic side and even some Republicans that moved away from Trump, aggressively from Trump, said he's going to be an autocrat, he's going to be a dictator, we'll lose democracy. And so Sean put the question to him, is that true?
First, he dodged it, and it took about 4 minutes.
Really? It
took 4 minutes before he finally answered, and the way he answered was saying no, except for the first.
He said yes. For the first day, I'll be a dictator.
I mean,
I'll close the border to immigrants, to illegal immigrants, and I will endorse drill.
Yep.
And so,
But it just shows you that even when you're friendly, and not too many people can be more friendly to Trump than Sean Hannity, even when you're friendly to Trump, you try to give him a softball. Like, all Trump had to do was say, of course not. Here he is, laying it up. It's a layup, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to break the law, you weaponize the government, abuse power, anything like that, are you? And even when you try to give him a layup like that, how does he respond?
Well, they said the same thing
yes.
They said the same thing about the questions that Stefanik answered these three presidents of universities. They said it was the easiest question to answer. It's wrong, and I wouldn't.
It's not so hard.
I wouldn't tolerate it. Not a context. It's a context, and all three use the same language. And it started with Gay of Harvard, and they picked up from her answer the exact same answer. It depends on the context. And even when she pushed them, she said, it just requires a yes or no. And they said, well, it's not that simple, So in the case of But Trump was always honest, because even in 2016, when he was in the debate with Hillary, the host, the interrogator, asked him, the moderator asked him, would you accept the results of the election?
Clinton immediately said yes.
Yeah.
And then they turned to Trump immediately.
And he said, yes, I would, as long as I'm the winner. So
again, not a lie.
You can't be more honest than that. And, I argue with my members of my family. They say, why do you think he'd be an autocrat or jeopardize democracy? And I said, since the beginning of this country, since George Washington, the transfer of from one president to another, once one president won, even Jimmy Carter, who had only one term, when it came time, as a matter of fact, the best example was in 2000, Gore and Lieberman actually won. And they wanted another recount in Florida to establish the reason they believed they won, or they could prove they won. And at that time, the Supreme Court was majority ruled by Republicans. The Supreme Court held that it wasn't necessary anymore to have any further accounts. And they immediately appointed Bush Cheney. And Gore and Lieberman both conceded and both wished them well. And they're, you represent the country now. We wish you everything success. And they cooperated in turning over everything in the transition. And Trump refused to make his people available to Biden and his people to bring them up to date to what was going on. And till this day, I don't think he's conceded. So, and certainly it wasn't
Can't concede something you didn't lose.
Right. And then, and so that in itself points that he's dangerous to a democracy where it was never an issue when you lose or when the other side wins, even if you're not sure if the Supreme Court says somebody won, then you have to adhere to that. So
it's true. There's always been a peaceful transition of power.
Trump is always honest. You don't like to hear the honesty, but even when he says all he would do is drill, 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 is completely disregarding global warming, even though the top scientists, or the legitimate scientists, overwhelmingly say it's a real danger. And from my point of view, for the benefit of my kids and grandkids, even if it's only a 10% chance that it's an existential threat, in other words, it conceivably could wipe out the world, I want a better world. So even if you spend the money, there's a lot of things we spend the Congress and the government spends the money on and has less reason or less danger attached to it than the end of the world, which global warming could have. Not the end of the world, but the end of humanity occupation on Earth. So, so he says, drill, 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 as if that's the most important thing. During the Second World War, we had a shortage. We didn't have enough oil, and we had rationing, and people understood and complied totally. And here, it's all about the success of business rather than dealing with the reality.
And what's good for individuals as compared to what's good
Yeah,
for the group.
what's good,
or the
what's
whole.
good for the human race.
So if Fox did stage this as a ratings grab, it worked because it was a highly number one rating.
Why would they participate? Because it gives them exposure. Politicians, the only one that has overwhelming and unlimited exposure to the public through television and every other medium
the president.
is not only the president, because it's few presidents that have the exposure that Trump had. Trump is on every single day. I think, if he loses, we'll miss him in terms of there won't be as much news as there is, because every minute, whether it's MSNBC or Fox News or all the news stations, CNN, have breaking news. And at least 50% of the time, it's related to Trump. His trials, his lies, his statements.
Let's put it this way. If he answered Hannity's question, no, are you going to do all these things when you're president? If he answered it no, would he have been on every news headline, in every news clip? And it's not a story.
I tell you, he's honest.
So he's
honest.
savvy too.
No.
That's how you get yourself news. Well, you got to give it a little credit to Newsom though, because he had to know he's going into the lion's den 2-1.
Right.
In fact, I heard one person say that was quite an interesting debate between Newsom and Sean Hannity, moderated by Ron DeSantis. Between Hannity. Because one question after the next was just, conservative talking points stacked in the favor of DeSantis against Newsom.
Yeah, but Newsom didn't.
But he was.
He didn't have a lot of risk because his governor of California, no matter if he does poorly on this, and his answers please his followers.
And he did a good job of dodging and circumventing, answering directly what he was being asked to. So he's certainly not.
I don't think that Sean Hannity handled it well. They rarely do, because they talked over each other.
A lot of talking over each other,
and
more than usual.
I don't know why they don't have the ability
turn off the microphone.
To turn off the microphone.
Yeah, they did that. I think in the second Trump, there were two debates, Trump Biden, and the first debate, remember, Trump was just completely out of control, and I think the second one they had a microphone cutoff button.
Everyone I've ever watched does. Your time is up, and then after the time is up, they're still
so you just
going on. There
have
should
a cutoff, a hook.
There should be a way, should be like a 2-minute warning or a 1-minute warning before, so and then after that, press the thing.
Right. I mean, they want to encourage that.
Yeah.
The liveliness and the banter and the fighting, but
I was going to start my own channel because I like debates, called the Debate Channel. 24 hours a day of debates. There's so many great debates, current debates, and going back to Lincoln Douglas and debates at Harvard, at Cambridge, at Oxford. Very exciting debates. There was a movie about some black college that won the debates. Did you see that movie? Very good movie. That won. I don't know if it was a true, an actual real life movie, but anyway, it was very well done. And so I like debates. But one of the ways I was going to get some recognition, because it's very hard to start a new offering and get attention. So I was going to have like somebody like Giuliani and Cuomo or something on together, and during the argument, one of them punches the other one in the nose, and it makes all the newspapers and his lawsuits and so forth. So it would get attention. So in a way, they like the more violent the arguments. It's like with hockey, hockey, that people love the fights. Somebody once said, I went to a fight in the hockey hockey game broke out. Anyway, they want exposure, and even when it seems like it might be negative, it's positive for their own. Usually, at the end of all of these debates, each side's backers, advocates, say my guy won. Doesn't matter.
Oh, of course. After the debate, Fox had on a few of its commentators, one being Trump's former press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, or whatever her name is. And Hannity was asking them, what'd you think? Oh, just killed him.
Yeah.
And then there was another show,
Well, his former secretary, Huckabee, is now governor of Wyoming. Did you know that?
Arkansas.
What? Arkansas.
Yeah, the daughter.
Arkansas, yeah, maybe Arkansas. I thought it was Wyoming.
Yeah, she doesn't go by Huckabee, though.
Elizabeth Cheney is from where?
Wyoming.
Wyoming?
Yeah.
So I
I
thought it
don't
was
think she's the
Wyoming.
governor. Huckabee's daughter.
Huckabee, yeah. Huckabee is probably, you're right. I think Huckabee was from Arkansas. No, maybe Hutchinson is the guy from Arkansas.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders is the 47th governor of Arkansas.
You're right. As usual, you're right. I told you he's a genius.
So Kayleigh McEnany was obviously, DeSantis won, and then the other people, completely obliterated him. Couldn't, it was all.
The one that, as a matter of fact, the one that Fox makes the notes the most fun of is the current spokeswoman, an African American kind of French name. I forget her
press
name.
secretary.
Yes, press secretary, and
yeah, they don't like her.
she often seems evasive. In other words, she'll say it's not clear, or it's a controversial subject or something.
Karine Jean-Pierre.
Yeah.
But I mean, when is a press secretary not evasive? It's a hard job.
Yeah.
But I think it detracts a little from the authenticity of the debate when the moderator does really bias things. When in the other debates, when the moderators ask a question, it's a question. It's not, here's a chart showing the point I want to make. Now, can you explain this chart? So,
let me
here's a chart showing people leaving.
Let me raise the other issues related to this that my producer prepared. The next question he asked is, was this more of a staged event than a genuine debate? Did the format favor DeSantis, given Hannity's well-known conservative leanings? he was one of the closest of all people to Trump throughout his presidency, and still to this day. So, was it a debate? I guess it was a kind of debate. It's not the format that you usually have one person addressing both of them, but it was a debate because they disagreed with each other. So I think that constitutes a debate.
Yeah, whether it was impartially moderated, I think that's a different question.
Given Hannity's well-known,
yeah, and how he did it, he puts up charts showing, here are a few things we'll compare Florida against California, gas prices, taxes, every single possible point that he's trying to make that he puts up on the screen, and it's like, well, how do you explain this? And then DeSantis is like, well, what can I say? Of course, it's great. Everything we do great is great. And then
you have to remember Fox has a point of view that they like to
that's why it detracts a little from the impartiality of it.
There's another issue that my producer raised. Why were DeSantis approval ratings so much higher before he entered the race?
It's funny because people are befuddled a lot by this, because if you look at where DeSantis polled before he announced he was a candidate, he was like really competitive with Trump, and would have beaten Biden easily. And then he announces his candidacy, he enters the race, and just goes downhill very quickly from there.
Well, in a way,
so he should go back to not being a candidate if he wants to win.
It makes some sense, because in a way he's he tries to be a Trump similar Trump. What's the word I'm looking for? The same kind of candidate and same kind of president that Trump is. And if that's the case, then nobody could beat Trump
being Trump.
At being Trump.
That's right.
So once he confronted Trump, he lost his unique feature. But he's still number two, or tied with Haley, or they're neck and neck. So those are the two most likely replacement if Trump drops out.
The best, I still think the best line from Newsom was, one thing we have in common, Ron.
Neither one of us is going to be
a nominee,
the candidate. Yeah. Right.
Though it shows, I think, to the question of why his approval rating sank, is he's not as smooth, and he uses it as an attack on Newsom, slippery and slick, but from Newsom's side, it's more experienced politician. Newsom is a much more experienced, polished politician, and knows how to nuance things that are not looking so good. And DeSantis, just kept coming back to, well, people are leaving California in droves because it's terrible, and he didn't really nuance his advantages, and that's what cost him that likability. Plus, he's not being smart on appealing to the masses. When he signs a 6-week abortion ban, when he
DeSantis,
when he comes out and really attacks the gay community. And I thought Newsom had a good line when he went after him, saying, I don't like the way you demean people like the LGBTQ community that you don't agree with. And he, and then again, when he, like a lot of Republicans, called the vice president Kamala Harris, and Newsom made a point to say it's Kamala Harris, and it, Ron. And a lot of the Republicans intentionally mispronounce her name.
I didn't hear the difference. The
One,
way you said it.
the accent's
Sounds
on
like the same
well, it's Kamala Harris. The accent's on the first syllable.
instead of Kamala.
Yes. And they know it. I mean, Hannity's not a dumb person. He's an articulate guy.
I never knew the difference.
And a lot of other, but if you did, would you continue to intentionally misuse it? And a lot of them do.
Yeah.
And Newsom made a point
I didn't know that. You're probably more aware of it.
Well, it comes up a lot because and then Newsom brought it up in the debate when DeSantis said it. He didn't stop to let Newsom make the point, so they were talking over each other as they did through the half of the.
Sadly, I've never been impressed with her wisdom.
And he said, and it's Madam Vice President. I mean, I find Hannity very disrespectful when he calls the President of the United States Joe. Like him or not, he's the President of the United States. He deserves the respect to be called President Biden or President, and they call him Joe.
And they still call Trump President Trump.
Yes. I mean, that's, again, Hannity's not a dumb person. It's just very disrespectful to do that. Agree with him or not. You don't have to be disrespectful to be a journalist, even if you disagree with the policies. So,
but what's his name? He's been around a long time, run for office more times, so he could be a little more polished. DeSantis won the Florida governorship by a landslide, so obviously he was very good at that campaign and appealing to his people in
but a lot
Florida.
A lot of the things that he's come out with since, though, have gotten more extreme. Like he just, he had, it was a 15-week ban. Now he made it a 6-week ban. He went after Disney much harder after being reelected than before being reelected.
That's where he mirrors Trump, because Trump gets in trouble more from his own mouth than from any witness against him. They're going to, on the trials, they're going to use a lot of things that he expressed that nobody else expressed, And so DeSantis did some of the same stuff. When you don't say anything, people could think you're stupid. Once you open your mouth, they lose
sure.
all
doubt.
Right? So the next question.
But they did get to some issues. I mean, they talked about the economy, immigration.
But this is a major one that my producer, and I didn't even understand it when I read it. Number 5, did the poop map prop help or hurt DeSantis' argument? So I didn't know what the poop map was. You explained it to me. You understood it. And it's apparently, why don't you explain the poop map?
So, he is part of Governor DeSantis's attack on California. He pulls out a piece of paper with a bunch of brown spots all over it. He says, here's a map of San Francisco, and each one of these spots is where feces have been located on the street. So look how terrible, and there's a big plot, look how terrible San Francisco is. Yeah, so that's taken a life of its own called the poop map. And the point being, look at this map, look at how terrible San Francisco is, look at how terrible California is, look at how terrible the management of California is, look at how terrible the country would be if an administration stays in power who mirrors the management policies of California. So he gets from the poop map all the way to why Biden shouldn't be president in one piece of paper. Mm-hmm. One map makes that point. So, was that a stunt?
Every state should have that map. The question is,
so was it a stunt, or was it, did it make a valid point?
I thought the best line either one of them made is somebody's father.
Yeah,
moved to Florida.
Father-in-law. So yeah, DeSantis. It was allegedly. So
Newsom's father-in-law.
Yeah. So DeSantis was saying he was talking to a guy who just moved to Florida, and he was talking about why and asking him, why'd you move here? And he listed all the reasons why people list moving to Florida: lower taxes and better environment for business and all these things. And then he said, oh, and by the way, that was your father-in-law. By the way, the guy said, I'm Governor Newsom's father-in-law.
That's a big win.
So, although I'm not sure there was some other context to that, I'm not sure what.
A member of his family chose to move out of the state where Newsom is governor to move into the state where DeSantis is governor.
Yeah, although the point that he was making over and over of the exodus from California to Florida goes to one of those, you can lie with statistics. Statistics don't lie, but you can lie with statistics, because his point, DeSantis's point was more people move from California to Florida than from Florida to California. And that's true. But California is many times larger than Florida.
So I think it has almost 40 million residents.
Compared to Florida. So to say more people...
Florida probably has 20 million, I think.
So when you have a vast different base, you can't just say, well, more people move from Florida this way than the other way. You have to normalize it on a per capita basis.
Right.
And if you do that, then it turns out the opposite's true. That more people move from Florida to California on a per capita basis than from California to Florida.
That's why this is a much better line. Your father-in-law chose to choose me as his governor than you.
And the poop map.
And he left.
And here's the poop map of San Francisco. So, I mean, look, politics is a lot about zingers. It's a lot about, what did Reagan say to Mondale? But when they were saying Reagan was too old, here's Reagan they were saying was too old to be president during the debate.
Right.
And right off the bat, that issue came up, one of the moderators said, and Reagan said, I will not let age be an issue. I will not let age, youth and inexperience, youth and inexperience hold it against Governor Mondale.
As an experience because of his youth.
Right. So, people remember that.
What's his name was a genius in terms of delivery and quick response. Nobody was better than.
But I think it's that's where these things have gone. That's where they've become. Is how do you come up with a zinger that people will remember?
Yeah, you could see how big the debate could be. Because they said if you listened between the Nixon and the Kennedy debates, on television, it was clear that Kennedy won. And on radio, it seemed that Nixon won. Because on television...
Yeah, Nixon had a 5 o'clock shadow. He was sweating. He didn't have and Kennedy looked like Kennedy. Yeah. All right, so we only have a few more minutes to go, so we can talk a little about some policy or issues that came up. One of them, when we talk about the big one, the gun gun issue, because that's always a topic that we like to discuss on the Voice of Wisdom.
Yeah.
So Sean Hannity puts up a chart that says violent crime in California is going up and down in Florida. How do you explain that?
Violent crime.
Violent crime in Florida is down and California is up. So it was a softball question to DeSantis, who said, well, of course, because everything we're doing in Florida is obviously right, because well, what you just said, Sean. And DeSantis Newsom made the point, well, this is where he did kind of circumvent. He didn't really answer the question. He answered a different question, which was, well, but gun violence, murder is way down, is much higher in Florida than California, and that's because of your lax gun laws in Florida. And in California, we have the strictest gun laws in the country. And look at that, we have a lower. Right. So that's why we want to have these sorts of policies and not your sorts of policies. So
that's a good point in terms of the gun issue.
And we just had another shooting just
today.
Yeah,
or yesterday, 6 people murdered. We've had more than almost 2 a day since the beginning of this year. There's 365 days, and we've had something like over 600 mass shootings. In other words, at least 4 shots and I think 1 or 2 people killed. So I don't know. You can't make a case for the broad availability of guns.
I mean,
in this nation.
The red states do have a higher gun murder rate than blue states. The blue states would say it's because we have stricter gun control, and the red states would say it's nothing to do with that. It's all because of mental health. So,
which state has more mental health problems?
Well, the red states would have to say the reason why the gun murder rates are higher in our states is just because we need to address it through, we haven't yet fully addressed it through mental health reform. And it's nothing to do with the fact that people can access guns. It has to do with what they do with the guns once they have them. But that's the typical argument.
Yeah, that doesn't explain why the United States has far more deaths by guns than any other nation in the world. The argument then would be, we have the most crazy.
And that's certainly not true. We're equal crazy.
I don't think, yeah, nobody's measured that.
Maybe we do.
Maybe we are the craziest nation. But
there should be a report like the happiness report on the craziness report.
If we're the wealthiest nation and we're the most violent and most mentally unstable, then we are sort of off the.
So, all right. So I guess
we didn't deal with Florida's claim of lower taxes and lower gas prices and faster job growth. DeSantis pointed out California as a high cost, high regulation.
Yeah, and California has different mileage requirements for cars, so gasoline is higher price. They tax it higher. Newsom was saying it's also, he believes, from some price manipulation and gouging from big oil companies. Didn't really give a lot of detail on that, but was saying
that there's more gouging in California than
that it has to do with big oil as much as it has to do with anything else. Didn't give a lot of detail and background on that.
Did you realize that in recent weeks, oil has dropped sharply? It's because they argue that we're exporting more oil than ever. And despite the fact that Saudi Arabia and OPEC countries keep cutting the supply to push up the price, we have been successful in forcing the price down.
Right.
They'll probably cut it.
I mean, that's where, you know, I think Biden administration has been very poor in communicating a message, because that was the big message of the Trump administration, is we made the country energy neutral or energy positive and energy independent, and prices were low, and you know, I believe the data shows that energy independence, which is not defined as how much oil we export versus import, it's a totalitarian of energy export, because we import more oil than we export.
Do we?
Yes, but on an energy basis, like, because we export certain refined hydrocarbons, other hydrochemicals that are manufactured from the import. So it's not just an import export.
Natural gas. We export.
So when you take that as the measurement, what I saw was that the U.S. is more positively energy independent than it was under Trump, but that message doesn't get
we're more independent today.
On that basis. Yeah. So it's not really communicated too well.
I still say the government has been remiss, not only with this president, but for the last maybe 8 or 10 presidents, by allowing OPEC to collaborate to fix the price and lower the supply to push up it's a cartel. And that behavior in the United States would get people locked up in jail, incarcerated. And we just allowed them to impose this enormous tax since 1974 or something, when oil was $1 a barrel, at the most $2 a barrel, and we lived with that. The Saudi lived with that, and then they decided they're going to take control of it and fix the supply and limit the supply. So it's been the biggest external tax in the history of the human race. That's why we made monopolies. People that started monopolies or whose companies turned out to be monopolies, subject to incarceration. And here we let them get away with it. Without any response, we could have, if we should put sanctions on anybody, it's any country that lowers their export of oil when they have much more capacity.
Look at the reaction that DeSantis had about the electric car requirement in California. In California, I think the requirement is by 2035, 12 years from now, all new cars have to be EVs.
Right.
So DeSantis said all cars. He didn't really, and the reality is,
I think they did say all cars in California.
It's new cars, which means it's not. He made it like you have to get rid of your regular car.
Cars, it takes a few years.
Yes,
till all cars are.
But his point, he was trying to make the point: how can regular people in California afford an electric car? And the answer is they don't have to.
Right.
And that also
they can still buy a new a used car. And
that's 12 years from now.
Yeah.
And is that really such a bad thing? I mean, he's making it like it's so terrible, but is it really such a bad thing? Don't you want to actually have an evolution, a migration toward
but the
EVs?
Biden administration is having a very hard time because the adoption of electric cars right now is very disappointing, very much less than people, because people don't like the idea of running out of gas after 300 miles. As a matter of fact, this week, one of the stocks...
Even though few people drive 300 miles at a time, but...
Well,
I mean,
they want the option of...
Yeah, but no one does that. I mean, it's like people... You're right. That's why they don't like it. But the reality is, most people drive like 30 miles a day, so you could easily charge your car every day. And if you do drive a long trip on the highway and go 300 miles, who cannot stop for 300 miles? I mean, you have to stop to get gas. So your gas car can go 500 miles,
yeah, but
maybe. But who goes 500 miles without stopping anyway?
But they're not sure where the charger is.
Station, yeah.
And this week they introduced a truck, a big truck that is electric.
What, the Tesla Cybertruck?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
And
the one where the windows don't break unless you throw something against the window, like Musk did.
But what do you call it? The size of the battery, they said, is so enormous it takes up a lot of the truck. And whereas on what kind of fuel is the trucks use?
Diesel.
Diesel fuel. On diesel fuel, these trucks can go over 1,000 miles. And the and the electric, the battery operated trucks probably can't go more than 300 miles.
All right, but
so that's
how many trucks go 1,000 miles without stopping, though?
Well,
I mean, yeah, you can go 1,000 miles without a fill up, but I mean, I don't know a truck driver who can drive 1,000 miles without having to pee.
Yeah, but it's still there's a good argument that people are reluctant, like my son-in-law, Ashi, Alan Stallon, owns a Tesla and he loves it. And it's almost self-driving, so he loves it even more. And so people that have it seem to be very satisfied with it. But I guess he doesn't drive a lot of long distance and he doesn't think of it and he loves it. So if they put up more outlets to charge it, or if they could, and they will, if they get the chargers to do it in 5 minutes instead of 20 minutes.
I mean, the policy question, really a good stark comparison between DeSantis and Newsom. The policy question is, should the government play a role in accelerating that adoption?
Well, they are.
By a mandate?
They're giving subsidies. So I think you get $7,500 or something.
Right. So should the California mandate be expanded?
They should give $15,000.
Or should there be a line in the sand that says 12 years from now, this is going to be the case? Or should it just be left to the free market to decide when people can have an electric car? You have to have an electric car.
The auto companies that are making electric cars must be strongly motivated to overcome this issue, because otherwise, I listened to one owner of a chain of auto stores, auto outlets, and he said he's not selling any. He says he sells 100 traditional, what do you call them, oil-driven cars, gas-driven cars. What do you call them? There's a name for them. 100 to maybe 2. He's stuck with a lot of electric vehicle inventories, and that's going to dictate the rate of adoption.
Well, yeah, but the question is, should the government
about looking forward to getting
have a hand in that?
Cars. Now, I'm hesitant, and I'm not driving any long distance, but I don't want to stay 15 minutes and charge it. It's bad enough that when I stop at a gas
Well, but
station.
again, that goes back to sacrifice.
Yeah.
Or would you be willing to have to spend 15 minutes at a charger every few hours to have a better planet?
I want to have a better planet, but the immediate burden dictates more than lots of other things. Just like inflation is what killed Biden.
Well, that's what Hannity said to Newsom.
Oh,
That's what Hannity, was helping out DeSantis a little bit. He said, "What type of energy could you bring on board in 3 months to, reduce or offset, there is none, because you can't solve the problem in 3 months. So it always goes back to, people are struggling paying gas, so we can't do anything to attack this problem in the long run.
I believe within 2 years they'll accelerate the. I have a lot of confidence in our wisdom, our techies solving these problems, maybe through AI, maybe a lot of new approaches. So I think it'll be overcome, certainly by when California has the deadline.
Yep, 12 years.
How much time do we have?
All right, we're just about out of time.
We're out of time?
We'll be back in a week.
Yeah, I want to thank you all for participating, for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I want to wish you all, as I do every week, a great every day, a great day, a great every day, and each day of your life should be more rewarding, better than the day before, and particularly, most importantly, enjoy good health. God bless you, and I see you next week. Or you'll see me next week. I don't know. I don't get to see a lot of you because we're not yet 2 ways. I look forward to being 2 ways shortly. So God bless you again. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you want to have a happier life, I guarantee you, I promise you, I'll give you double your money back. If you're not happier after you get a hold of this happiness book that I wrote with my brilliant daughter, Happiness Guaranteed, or The Misery Back. You can get it, I think, at any bookstore, certainly at Amazon. And as so many people who now own it write me thank you notes, including people who have given them more as gifts and say how much they've received thank you notes. A lot of corporation heads told me they send out hundreds and even thousands of gifts before every Christmas, every holiday, important holiday, and they rarely get a significant response. They tell me since they sent this book out, they're getting more positive responses than they ever got before. So God bless you. Enjoy your life with or without this book. But I'm telling you, it'll accelerate your happiness.